Robbie Nicol, good to have a chat with you. How are you doing?
Awesome. Thanks, Andrew. Yeah, feeling pretty good. Not too bad.
I've got headphone envy right this second. So I'm guessing they're
Yeah,
Bluetooth, yeah?
they are Bluetooth. I'm just thinking, in an interview setting, they're pretty noticeable. They don't sort
Yeah,
of
but it's
blend into
it's
the background.
trendy.
Okay, good.
It's
Thanks,
trendy.
Andrew.
I live in central Auckland and I see people wearing those all the time. And
Okay,
you
great.
know, I'd probably
So it's
lose them. I
good,
need to be
actually.
wired in. Otherwise, people have the little ear pods and I know I
I
would
know.
lose them. So
I
I'm
feel
wired
exactly the
in,
same
which
way.
is,
I also think, I don't know, anytime I've had to wear like an earpiece or anything, they always fall out immediately.
yeah,
So
yeah. Because it's
I
a
don't think
one
it's the
size
right
fits
option.
all, doesn't it? And they can
Yeah,
just slip
and I'm
out.
not part of that all, apparently. That's
Yeah, me too, me too. Hey, so the show in the Comedy Fest is called The Late Night Pilot. Yeah.
yes, Robbie Nicol's late night pilot.
So you're kind of taking on that late night TV talk show genre, and you've done a little bit about that online anyway. So just
Yes.
give me a rundown of what you're planning and what kind of night it'll be.
Yeah, well, the kind of conceit of the show, the joke of the show is that I've been doing this for a while now and still don't have a television show. So that's embarrassing. New Zealand loves to give shows to white guys. How come I don't have one yet? The point I keep making is that two of the white guys with TV shows, Guy Montgomery and Guy Williams, are literally guys. And that's the number of people we have, and yet I still haven't managed to get one. And so the premise is that I'm putting on this late night pilot to demonstrate what the show would be that would be
Yeah.
on New Zealand late night television. And so we go through the motions. We have uh, political guests on and interview them. I do a monologue. We have comedy guests. We play games. Everything you'd expect from a late night TV show, but then also underpinning it is this kind of character's desperation and panic.
And it's a satire. So you're not only doing political satire, you're also taking on the genre itself. I was extending my question there as you were drinking, just so that you had a chance to swallow before
Appreciate
you
it. Just
spoke.
add a few extra
Yeah,
words. No, absolutely. Yeah, I think part of we've been doing this monthly show at the basement where it's been a really fun opportunity to have new guests each month and to try new games and new formats and new sketches and all the rest. I feel like when we're doing a comedy fest show and this is kind of our special one for the year, it feels exciting to play with the idea of, okay, what is this form that we're doing? What is the point of doing satirical political jokes, and what is this format, and does this belong on television, and is it still relevant, and asking all of those questions. So yeah, it's a media satire as well as a political satire for sure.
and obviously in America, late night television has a long, long history, like a really long history, and it is huge. I love watching their stuff, particularly the political stuff, and especially now, given the American situation in politics. The descriptor in your press release was New Zealand's John Oliver. Do you like John Oliver? Is he one of your heroes?
Yeah, totally. I think when I was growing up, when I was like year 10, so that's when I was like 14, I was asked to write about a hero for a social studies class, and I
Yeah.
wrote about John Stewart. And my social
Yes.
studies
Yeah.
teacher was like, "I've never heard of that man, but great." Um,
Really?
because
Wow.
I think it was like a global edition that played on Comedy Central or CNN, and that was about it. So he was hard to access. So John Stewart was the real driving, guiding light when I started out. And I think John Oliver makes sense in the contemporary era because I feel like we've seen that people arguing from the left or arguing from the right and just kind of saying you're right and these people are idiots. And I'm not sure that's necessarily the most helpful thing in the world. Whereas what I like about John Oliver is that there's you get education out of that. You're probably expected to roughly align with John Oliver politically, but it's not just a pat on the back. You are going to learn something about an issue you probably didn't know anything about, and maybe are now outraged and want to do something about. So there is a real benefit to that.
And he can be pretty ruthless. His
Yeah.
stuff's often very well researched, but if he's going for someone where he knows there's hypocrisy, he doesn't hold back. He really doesn't.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it can be in an easier way, because you're a comedian, you're allowed to kind of lean in and exaggerate and to be absurd and do the things that, journalists sort of can't really do. Um, so I think that's part of, why that ruthlessness sits well, because he caveats it with jokes. So you're like, oh, it doesn't feel angry or bitter. It just feels funny.
Well, it's usually true, isn't it? I mean, the things he's pointing out are the truth,
Yeah.
and they're often around hypocrisy and people being absolute dicks. So, in that sense, it feels okay. Yes, he's really pointed, but it's okay because what he's saying is true. That there are arseholes out there doing these kinds of things. Are you, for you, with your satire, would there be limits? Are there things that you wouldn't kind of get into?
Is there anything we wouldn't get into? I mean, as long as it works as a monologue, we'll cover it, I think. The comedy aspect has to work, and there kind of needs to be a bit of an arc, I think, because they're, over 10 minutes long, some of these rants, and you kind of need to give people a
Yeah.
feeling of taking them somewhere, taking them on a journey. I also think we try to provide something to the conversation that hasn't already been added.
Right.
Sometimes that's just explaining something, like we did one on the Three Waters, and that I don't think we added anything new necessarily, but I just felt, as somebody who followed the news, it still wasn't super clear what this issue
Yeah.
was and
Yep.
what people were talking
No.
about. And so I felt that there was a place there where we could just do a simple explanation, and that would be the helpful
Yeah.
thing to contribute. But, we did one recently on Israel Palestine, and I think, so many people are talking about Israel Palestine. You question, what could I add to the conversation? And so the way we approached it was by saying, oh, well, let's look at, New Zealand's involvement, way back in the creation of Israel in the 40s. And that was an area where we thought, oh, that's something new that we could talk about that other people aren't talking about. And so we can justify making this video that it is adding something new to the conversation.
Yeah, and that is a topic particularly that is so divisive, and for some people, if you don't instantly agree with them, they ignore the nuance. So if you bring up something that doesn't
Yeah.
exactly align, you can get pilloried for it, no matter which side you're coming down on, or whichever side they are. And that's have you ever encountered that kind of stuff? That the stuff you're doing is people are actually, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting, right? Because people say, oh, I don't talk about political stuff because that would isolate half my audience. And, if we do that every monologue, every video we upload, we split the audience in half again, and so I think if you only watch it because you fully agree with me 100%, then you're probably going to lose interest. But I think hopefully, like you were saying about John Oliver, you don't have to agree with my conclusions to learn
Yeah,
something from the journey that I take,
yeah,
and so to learn something about Peter Fraser, the prime minister at the time of the creation of Israel and what his stance was on the issue. And you can learn something about that and still disagree with my takeaway at the end. I still hope that, you've got something out of the video and you laughed and you learned something. Um, but yeah, I mean, if you're talking about politics, people are going to disagree with you, and you just got to take it on the chin and say, that's fair enough. You're allowed to do so.
and you're prepared to take on even your own personal, private political viewpoints. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I think we try to take the piss out of everything, and that includes ourselves. And, that's what this show is that we're doing. When we have a full hour to play with an idea, the idea that, you know, like many comedians, the idea that most compels us is ourselves.
yeah.
So we're just
I think
looking
that's true about
inwardly.
most humans.
Yeah,
Actually,
yeah,
I
sure.
think,
Not just
yeah.
comedians. It's fun to explore those ideas and to challenge yourself and go, am I helping? Am I not helping? What's the value of this? and to really explore that through comedy.
That's brilliant. Hey, all the best for the season. And I, as I say, Basement Theatre is a fantastic crowd of people. So wishing you all the best. And when your next adventure comes along, let's have another chat.
Sounds perfect. Thanks so much, Andrew. Really appreciate it.